Hello, I'm Olivia, a 40-year-old woman, and I have quite a story to share. It revolves around my ex, who, despite still being legally married, I consider my ex-husband due to the betrayal he inflicted on both me and our daughter 4 years ago. Back then, when my daughter Kimberly was just 14, we faced financial struggles because my husband recklessly squandered our money. This caused considerable tension in our household, and we found it challenging to make ends meet with only one salary. Despite my efforts to shield Kimberly from the harsh reality, she began to sense that something was awry. She started harboring resentment towards her father for his irresponsible spending. The breaking point came on a cold and rainy June 16th afternoon when he left for good. Although he had left us alone for months in the past, this time it felt permanent. As a full year passed without his return, Kimberly and I developed a strong disdain for him. In the face of adversity, I assured my daughter that I would step up and make sure she lacked nothing. I quit my job and delved into affiliate marketing and content writing. It took about a year, but I managed to build a comfortable life. I became a homeowner and even bought a luxurious car for Kimberly and me. My dedication to hard work didn't go unnoticed by Kimberly, who, inspired by my example, decided to pursue a career in online content creation. She flourished, amassing a following of 90,000 on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. In this digital era, turning our lifestyle into a source of income turned out to be a rewarding endeavor. I am immensely proud of her. However, as is often the case in life, what rises must eventually fall. Sadly, we recently experienced the loss of Henry, my former father-in-law, and Kimberly's grandpa. The news devastated us. Despite Ben leaving us years ago, we remained connected to his parents. They were good people who supported us through financial hardships and emotional turmoil. Henry, in particular, struggled deeply with Ben's actions. While the rest of us had given up hope, Henry clung to the belief that Ben would one day return with an explanation to mend our broken hearts. As absurd as it seemed, Henry's compassionate nature couldn't fathom any other outcome. Unfortunately, he never witnessed such closure. His passing, though after a long and fulfilling life, was undoubtedly hastened by the silence from his son. Kimberly and I attended the funeral, where we found solace in each other's embrace alongside Aria, Kimberly's grandma, and my ex-mother-in-law. Despite the somber atmosphere, something inexplicable occurred. It was as if the cemetery's ambience, combined with grief-stricken faces, played tricks on my mind. In that moment, amidst the sorrow, I could have sworn I saw a ghost, a sight too bewildering to comprehend. My eyes must have deceived me, for in the distance, I glimpsed the specter of a man who had been absent from our lives for 4 years, my husband. Yet he resembled a ghost, unnaturally gaunt, as if all the life had been drained from him. I attributed it to the shock of his father's death. Such harrowing news could make anyone appear ill. He approached the funeral, sending shockwaves through everyone. Kimberly erupted in screams and berated him for abandoning us years ago. Aria, his mother, sobbed even harder, questioning where everything went wrong. Meanwhile, I stood frozen, overwhelmed by a flood of emotions. It's clear your presence isn't wanted here. You don't get to show up randomly like this. Leave the same way you left 4 years ago. I hate you and I don't want to see you here, Kimberly shouted. Oh my goodness, Ben, how could you have left all those years ago? Your father died of a broken heart, you know. Aria pleaded. Let him stay. I unexpectedly intervened, surprising everyone, including Ben. After my initial shock wore off, I realized that this wasn't the time or place for a dramatic display of emotions. Despite my hatred, he had lost his father, and he had the right to say goodbye. I conveyed this sentiment to everyone, and we agreed, at least for the time being, to remain civil out of respect for dear Henry. The funeral proceeded, and we reconvened at my home. Nice place you got here, Ben commented. Cut the crap, Ben. You can't just waltz in here like nothing happened. If you want to stay, tell us everything, absolutely everything. I won't let you taint this home with your negative energy. Olivia has worked too hard for it, I asserted. I'm here because of my father's funeral. He was my father, but I'm also here for another thing. I'm here to collect my inheritance, Ben stated, prompting me to physically restrain Kim before she launched another verbal assault. Tension and murmurs filled the air as people sensed the brewing altercation. Fortunately, Arya managed to keep the crowd at bay while I led Ben and Kim to a quieter part of the house. I didn't mean to hurt you, my baby. Ben attempted to reconcile. Don't call me that. I'm not yours in any way. You forfeited that right when you left us to fend for ourselves without explanation. What kind of father does that? I tried to forgive you, but I can't, Kim retorted bitterly. Look, Kim, Olivia, I'm sorry about everything. I really am. But I desperately need the money. I'm in some hot water right now, Ben explained. Are you doing drugs? I interjected, then hesitated, his poor and sickly appearance suddenly making sense. At that moment, Arya joined us. Now that I've sorted everything out, Ben, can you please explain what happened? Your father waited for you all this time. He held on to hope that you would return one day with a good enough explanation to ease our doubts. So please tell me that you've come bearing some good news. I came here to get my inheritance money, Mom, Ben confessed. He's on drugs, Grandma. That's why he came here, to get his inheritance money so he can buy more drugs, Kim added bitterly. No, it's not like that at all. You were right about me hanging with the wrong crowd. Let's just say I was at the wrong place at the wrong time, and now I owe some people some money, Ben explained. How much are we talking about? Arya inquired. $50,000, Ben admitted. Wow, that's quite a sum. So, while Mom and I were struggling to keep warm and fed, you were messing around with shady people. Well, we won't help you with that. You made your bet, and now you have to lie in it, sweetie, I concluded, disappointment evident in my voice. I know you're upset, but please, are you trying to defend him right now? He left us, Mom. I know, Kimberly. He didn't just leave you, okay? He left me too. He left your grandmother, and he left Grandpa too. He broke all of our hearts, and we don't ever have to forgive him for doing that. But clearly, he's learned his lesson, right? I mean, just look at him. Arya interjected. It's so crazy how I was defending him so wholeheartedly back then when in the end, it was because of me that he eventually did what he did. Shortly after the funeral was finalized, Ben was staying in a motel, and Arya, and mostly Arya, would visit him to see if he needed anything. Kim refused to even see his face again. We just wanted to finalize his inheritance so that he could be on his merry way. Kim and I decided that we didn't want much to do with him. But Arya, seeing how she was his mother, obviously wanted to try and rekindle something. As the weeks went by, and the family lawyers authenticated Henry's will and assessed inheritance values, Arya brought Ben to the house to promote a civil environment among us all. As much as bitterness and hatred wouldn't do us any good, it was going to take a long time for us to be anywhere near that. Ken would sometimes come just to sit and not speak, but she mostly opted out of the whole thing. Finally, the lawyers informed us of the inheritance each person would receive, and by some lucky stroke of fate, it turned out that Ben's inheritance would amount to $50,000. Ken was infuriated. She didn't find it fair that the person who robbed her of her happiness for many years gets to be rewarded out of the blue. As much as she was an adult, she was still my baby, and I could understand her frustrations. Unfortunately, it wasn't up to her to decide whether he would get the money or not. Arya and I were seemingly nonchalant about the findings, and honestly, I just wanted this whole process to be done with so that I could go back to living my good life. As Ben was assimilating to this lifestyle, it appeared as though his demeanor changed. He went from shy, timid, and remorseful to slightly arrogant and cocky, especially when he heard that he would be receiving exactly what he came here for. I noticed this behavior change, but opted not to say anything and just chalk it up to the drugs he was doing. It was so sad to see a man who used to be so respectable end up like this. S couldn't understand. A few more weeks went by, and Aurea told me, Ben's inheritance money is ready to be collected. He doesn't know about it yet, but I wanted to inform you beforehand. I know it's a terrible thing to consider, giving such a large amount of money to an addict. The thought of what he might do with it is too distressing to contemplate. I'm so sorry, my child, but I just don't think I can handle giving him the money, only to see him disappear again. It would shatter the sliver of hope I have left for him. I can't be the one to give it to him. Please, can you do it? Of course, Aurea. I can't imagine how hard this has been on you. It takes a different type of strength as a mother to witness such an awful thing happen to your baby. You've been strong for too long, Mom. It's time for you to rest. Please don't worry. I'll handle everything. Although I took on the task of handing Ben the money, I needed some time to compose myself and be at peace with any outcome that was about to happen. To calm myself down, ironically enough, in a way in the attic where all the old paraphernalia of my previous life sat. I kept many things from the old house, finding solace in them. They reminded me of how far I had come. The attic was the perfect place for me to sit and reflect upon the old and dusty plastic tea set we bought at a cheap yard sale when we couldn't afford proper dishes. I reminisced about the half-dead heater that often refused to work, leaving Kim and me huddled together for warmth, which was never enough. I glanced at Ben's old chest, filled with what I presumed were old work documents. I'd never dared to open it, afraid of confronting just how much money was being drained from the household to fund his other, seemingly more important lifestyle. However, on this day, the day I was supposed to give him the money, I decided that I couldn't be afraid anymore. I couldn't resist the urge to see what lay inside. I broke open the now worn-out chest to find stacks of papers, bank statements, and checkbooks, all detailing the amount of money that Ben had squandered away. As I examined the bank statements, tracing where the money had gone, I noticed that the account recipient was named Maria. Curiosity led me to dig deeper, and what I discovered made my heart drop deep within. The chest held a letter, a handwritten note. It read, Dear Ben, when are we going to stop sneaking around like this? I'm getting bored and tired of your inability to kick your wife and kid to the curb like you said you would. You seem to enjoy spending months with me, taking all of my drugs and going back to your family, even though you clearly hate them. If you don't tell them the truth, I will get Manuel involved. You already owe him tons of money from all the drugs you do with him for free. And this is how you want to treat me. I'm giving you 24 hours to get this done. Otherwise, you'll be in big trouble. Maybe I'll tell your wife all about me and our affair, as well as all the expensive bags and shoes you buy me. Or maybe I'll tell Manuel to get his goons to sort you out. Maybe I'll do both. Who knows? All of this can be avoided if you just do what we agreed upon. Remember, 24 hours, or your entire life is going to come crashing down. Tick, tick, babe. Seeing Maria reading this letter almost made my heart explode in my chest. So Ben was having an affair before he left, and he had spent the money on his mistress. The thought made me want to vomit. This man had prioritized his party lifestyle while his wife and kid were at home struggling to survive. It was unforgivable and utterly disgusting. This was the explanation I had been waiting for. All of his horrendous behavior simply boiled down to selfish self-indulgence. The rage and bitterness that I had harbored for so long began to boil within me. At this point, I was moving on autopilot. I gathered everything from the chest and stormed to the dingy motel where Ben was living. I burst through the door to find him with drugs on the bed. You are completely unbelievable. You're doing drugs just as I was about to give you the money. I said. What? You have the money? That's great. Give it to me. Ben replied callously. You are pathetic, and you make me sick. I spat. Yeah, well, I don't care. Give me the money, Olivia, he demanded. What is this? I flung the papers at him, holding on to the letter I had just discovered. He froze. If he didn't look sickly and pale before, he looked emaciated now. By the time I finished reading, he was trembling. You got this. As the days passed, life gradually returned to a semblance of normalcy for Aria, Kimberly, and me. We resumed our routines, focusing on the positive aspects of our lives and cherishing the bond we shared as a family. Aria found solace in her gardening, nurturing her plants with tender care, while Kimberly poured her energy into her online content creation, channeling her emotions into her creative endeavors. For me, closure brought a newfound sense of peace. Knowing the truth about Ben's betrayal lifted a weight off my shoulders, allowing me to move forward without the burden of unanswered questions. I dedicated myself to supporting Kimberly in her pursuits, reveling in her achievements, and celebrating each milestone she reached. Despite the challenges we faced in the past, our family emerged stronger and more resilient than ever before. We found strength in each other, drawing on our love and determination to overcome adversity. Our journey was far from easy, but together, we navigated the storms and emerged victorious. In the end, it wasn't the material wealth or external validation that defined our happiness. It was the intangible bonds of love, trust, and solidarity that held us together through the darkest of times. And as we looked towards the future with hope and optimism, I knew that no matter what obstacles lay ahead, we would face them together as a family united. The moral of the story is that while betrayal and adversity may shake the foundation of a family, love, resilience, and honesty can help rebuild it stronger than before. It emphasizes the importance of facing challenges head-on, seeking closure, and finding inner strength to overcome difficult situations. Additionally, it highlights the power of forgiveness, not necessarily for the benefit of the wrongdoer, but for the healing and peace it brings to oneself. Ultimately, the story underscores the value of family bonds and the ability to rise above betrayal to create a brighter future together. Thank you all for joining me on this journey. Life is full of twists and turns, and sometimes we're faced with challenges we never thought we'd overcome. But through it all, one thing remains constant: the strength of family. Remember, no matter what trials you may face, you're never alone. Hold on to the love and support of those closest to you, and together, you can weather any storm. Let's continue to uplift each other, inspire one another, and embrace the beauty of second chances. Until next time, stay strong, stay resilient, and keep spreading love wherever you go.